And hello YouTube, this is GSmaniamsmart, and I'm here with a brand new video for tutorials of GS. Today's tutorial we're looking at Adobe Premiere Pro, and I have the CC version. However, if you have a previous version, everything should be somewhat similar. I'm not going to be really going over anything advanced or anything crazy in this video, so all the basics should still be relatively the same. This is going to be a video on how to use Premiere Pro. It's going to be the beginner's guide. I've done a beginner guide on Photoshop. I've done a beginner guide on several other stuff. So this is going to be the Premiere Pro beginner guide, which has been fairly requested by several people. And here it is. Just let me start the video by saying that we're not going to have any music in the background today as we usually do, because we're going to be working with audio in this video. So I want to allow you guys to hear the audio properly. We're also going to be making some audio edits. Also, if you'd like to follow along in this tutorial, if you're one of those type of people that likes to follow along with what I'm doing, like actually following the steps, then you can download the folder that I have in the description. There's a Dropbox link, and you can download the same project files that I'm using in this tutorial to follow along with me. However, that's optional and up to you. If you'd like to do that, you can just sit here and watch me do stuff and absorb all the information. However you want to follow this tutorial. But if you like to actually carry out the same steps I'm doing, the option is there and you have it available to you. Now, when you first open up Premiere Pro, you're going to be greeted with this window here. You can click Show Welcome at startup. You can uncheck this if you want. However, I always find this very useful because, as you see, I pretty much use this program a lot. A lot of my previous videos are here. I've actually tried to record this video twice now, but I screwed up because something happened with my recording program. But the point is that I highly recommend you keep this window because you can open up your recent projects. So for example, if you don't finish editing one day, then you can always open it up from here. But just go ahead and click create new project, and pretty much all this stuff you're not going to want to touch. This is just for like people who know exactly what they're doing. They're creating like major films or whatever. Mostly, if you're just creating a YouTube video, you're going to be working with these two boxes here. Everything else is pretty much irrelevant to you. If you're just starting the program, though, you want to make sure you have Mercury Playback Engine software only as the renderer. So as long as you have that, you should be fine. You can also change the location of where you want to save your projects. Premiere Pro does have an autosave function, so it will autosave, every, I don't know, 15-10 minutes, or every time you made a major edit. It'll autosave, and here's where you'll find your autosaves in this folder here. Here is also where you will find your projects when you press Control S or go to File Save. So if you'd like to know where your stuff is saved, here's the location. However, like I said earlier, I usually just open my projects from the Open Recent little section where you saw in the beginning. So if you want to change this, it is there for you to change. But we're just going to go ahead and name this project something. We're just going to name it Starting Tutorial. Go ahead and click OK. Now you have 4 windows here, and they all do something different. Here's your window with all of your source material, all of your videos, all of your files, all of your pictures, audio. Everything is going to be basically here. Pretty much you're only going to be using this window and the effects window. Everything else I barely ever use. So you have that. And this top window is your source monitor, which is basically where you can preview your files. For example, if you have an audio track, you can preview it here. If you have a video track or a photo here, you can preview it here. You can also select what portion of the video you want to import. So this is basically your preview window for all of the stuff in this window. We have your timeline window here, which is basically where you make all of your edits, where you move your clips around, where you shorten clips, cut out clips, all that stuff. And to preview that, you're basically going to have this window. So you have a preview window for your files, and you have a preview window for all of your edits. That's basically what these two windows mean. If your workspace does not look like this, and your workspace is basically how these windows are laid out, if your workspace is not the same as mine, you can go to Windows, Workspace, Reset Current Workspace, click Yes, and you'll basically have it reset. However, most likely you'll have it how mine looks. So step 1 of creating a video is pretty much collecting your assets, collecting your videos, collecting your pictures, audios, music, all that stuff. So If you have my folder downloaded, you pretty much have all your stuff collected. If you have your own files, then you should have that collected. First step is to import. Now there's several ways to import. You can drag and drop as usual. You can go to your files and just drag everything into this window right here if you want to do that. You can also go to File, Import, and just select the files you want to import here, so you can do that. But another great tool to use is the media browser here, and here you can basically look at your folders and import them as well. So we're going to go to the C drive here, and we're going to scroll down to users. I know I have my stuff saved on the desktop, and then here's our desktop. If you want to make this window bigger, just press the tilde key, and the tilde key is basically the little squiggly line button. It should be right next to your number 1 key. It's the squiggly line. Click that and you'll basically have the window maximized. Premiere Pro tutorial, here's our folder. And we're just going to go ahead and highlight our assets, highlight our audio, and then right click import. And this is basically going to put all the files into your video editor. If you want to minimize this again, just press the tilde key again, and that happens. Now that we have our footage and our audio in here, what I'm going to do is, and you don't need to do this, but I like to do it. If you want to readjust your windows, by the way, you can just hover your mouse between these windows, and you can just do this. So it makes it very easy. So what I'm going to do is go down to New Bin, and we're going to name this Videos. And then we're going to create another new bin for pics, which is pictures. So what I'm going to be doing is going into our assets folder, and if you double click, you'll basically get this window here. And we basically just have some photos of eagles. What we're basically going to be doing is creating a, I wouldn't say it's documentary, well, kind of, but it's a little, it's a short little video explaining about the bald eagle. And we have some pictures here and some videos that we're going to put together. So a good thing to do is, let me go ahead and resize this again. You can select your footage through here, but I would highly recommend you go ahead and grab this bin assets little thing here. And what we want to do is dock it. So dock it there. That way you can actually, and you can move this around if you want. That way you can actually easily find what you're looking for. And what you want to do then is, you'll see that you have a bunch of different files here, but we're going to go ahead and change this to list view. If you go into the bottom left corner, you click list view, and here you can easily recognize what's a picture and what's a video. Pink is picture, blue is video. So I'm just going to go ahead and select all of my, and what you can do is click one and then hold control down, control click these pink ones, so you can basically select all of them. So that's a neat little shortcut, and that works out of Premiere Pro too. If you ever want to like select multiple files without, selecting all of them, you can hold down control. Now that we have them all selected, we're just going to go ahead and drag them into our pics right here. And then we're going to go ahead and just Control A to our videos and drag them into our videos. And now that we have that, we're going to go ahead and delete our assets folder. We don't need that anymore. You can just click backspace. And now what we have is basically our folders here. We have our audio, our video, and our pics. What I recommend to do is change this to list as well. Sometimes if you don't have a lot of files, you can edit in icon view. However, list is good if you have a lot of files, which right now we do a lot of files. Now the next step is, now we see here we have accidentally like selected a picture. For example, if you like double click any of these pictures, you can, this is basically your preview window. So here you can preview your pictures. Same with video. Here you can preview your video and you can basically let it play through. So that's basically how these two windows work together. Anything you click in here will basically show a preview in here, even audio files. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start a new sequence. Premiere Pro uses sequences. A sequence is basically just a timeline here. Now essentially, if you have a lot of different clips and a lot of different, like say you're making a movie, then a good idea is to make several different sequences. But for most YouTube videos, you're not going to be working with, many sequences. You're mostly just going to create one sequence and work from there. If you're creating a movie though, you're going to want to create several sequences. So to create a sequence, you can go ahead and go down to new item here, and you can create a sequence here. But what's going to happen is that you're going to get this huge list here, and honestly I don't even know what some of these do. So I mean, I know what some of these do, but it's really hard to explain because so many details go into it. So an easy way to do it is just go ahead and a quick shortcut actually, like if you want to create a 1080 by a 1920 by 1080 like sequence, what you can do is go to new item, then go to black video, and just create a 1920 by 1080 black video, and it's going to be popping up here. And then just go ahead and drag that over this button here, and this button is called the new item button. So if you look over, it's called new item. Just drag the black video over it, and then you've created a new sequence. And here's the sequence. If we go to icon view again, you'll see that this little icon basically shows that it's a sequence. And then you can just go ahead and click the black video right here and delete it again. And you basically have a 1920 by 1080 sequence here. However, if you don't want to do that, and ignore this right now, it's black because I just deleted a sequence. Another way to do it is if you have video, we're going to do the same thing again. Remember, we're going to double click our videos folder and we're going to go ahead and drag it, dock it over here. If you have a video, for example, we want to start with, let's start with this right here. We want to start with this piece of footage right here. Now, this right here that you're seeing is basically just the audio channels, and the reason why it looks so awkward right now is because we deleted our sequence. You'll see it go back to normal though. Generally speaking, what you want to do for all video files is you want to select where you want it to start and where you want it to end. So to do that, to select an in point and an out point, it basically means that I want my clip to start at this, which is your in point, and I want it to end at this, which is your out point. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to start it here. And to mark an in, you click this button. You can also press the I key. And then to mark an out, we're going to go ahead and click this button, which is mark out, or you can just click the O button. And then what you want to do is go back to your video folder. And now be aware that when you've marked your ins and out points, it's going to be saved. So all you got to do now is drag this piece of footage onto the new item again, and it'll create a sequence based off of the video footage that you selected. So if you want to create a 1920 by 1080 footage, then use the trick that I showed you, which is black video 1920 by 1080, then delete the black video, and you can just drag your files into the timeline like I'm going to be showing you next. However, if you want to base it off of your piece of video that you have that you took, then you want to go ahead and do what I just did, which is mark your ins and outs like we did here, and then just drag it from your video folder into the new item button right there. So you could do that. Now Premiere Pro works in a way that you can do a lot of shortcuts, and you don't need to do all these detailed things. For example, I'll be honest with you. When I'm editing my videos, I usually never like do this set an in point, set an out point, because I mean for YouTube videos, you're mostly just gonna be pretty much cutting stuff out or adjusting the way you want your pictures to look. If you want them to come first, or you want them to zoom in here, if you want them to fade in here or fade out there. So I mean, this is a great tool because you can basically select what you want to basically have in your video and select the in point and out point. It makes it easy. But honestly, what I usually just do, and I'm going to show you right now, what I usually just do, say I put my in point here, put my out point here. And this is how your video file is going to be in Premiere Pro. It's basically going to have an in point at the start of the video and an out point at the end of the video. What I usually do is I just drag my stuff into the timeline here, and I position it at the beginning, and then you can use your plus icon to zoom in to the timeline. You can also use a little bar here to zoom in and zoom out, but you can use the plus and the minus key to zoom out and zoom in to the timeline. And literally what I do is I see my piece of footage, I scrub through it like so, and what I do is I say, okay, I'm going to use my little razor tool here, and I want it to start here, I want it to end there, and then I grab my selection tool, I delete that, and I drag it to start. That's how I edit my videos. To me, it's like, I don't know, to me it seems easier. However, I can see it, like I used to do like little mini videos, like little mini movies, and I did see the method of going into your piece of footage and setting the in point, setting the out point to be efficient. But for my YouTube videos, it doesn't really serve me a purpose because I really only have like 1 or 2 pieces of video, so I just drag it in and use the razor tool. So I just wanted to show you guys how I edit and how you can edit, or how you're supposed to edit, I guess. Because I mean, let's be realistic. Why did they add these functions here for you to use them, right? So yeah, I'll be honest with you. I don't use any of these buttons ever, really. I just drag my stuff in and use the razor tool. But the buttons are here for you to use. I will be using these buttons just to show you guys how they work, but I'll also be showing you my way. So we have that. That's basically how you start your sequence. When you have your sequence started, from here on, everything is pretty much easy. So from here on, what I would do is I would just, start placing stuff on the timeline that you want to include. So we have let me move this over here to the very end, and let me actually just expand this a bit. So I want to go ahead and have my videos bin docked over here, and I want to have my pictures bin docked as well, so we can easily go back and forth. So what I would do here is I would literally just go through some of these pictures, and I would see, okay, what do I want to include? So I have my little intro here, the ocean here, right? And next I want to add, let's say, this shot right here. I would drag it in, and I would scrub through it. Okay, how much of this do I want? I want to start it right here, so I'm going to use my razor tool. We're going to start it right here, and I want to end it right around there. Now, as you can see, this function is very similar to, Control Z is to undo, by the way. This function is very similar to if you were to set your in points and out points. So for example, if I were to go here, okay, where do I want it to start? I want it to start here, press I. Where do I want it to end? I want it to end here, I press O. And then what you can do is you can select the point where you want it to be imported, and then just click overwrite right here, and it will import. So you could do it that way too. I mean, you could do it both ways. You could do it my way, which is just drag your stuff in, use the razor tool, cut out what you don't want, and then just drag it forward. Or you can use it this way, which is mark your in points and out points, then select the part in the timeline that you want to import it in. Now be aware you do have video 1, video 2, video 3. And video 1, video 2, video 3, what this is only really good for is if you have like a picture that you want to put on top of a video, or text you want to put on top of a video. That's what it's good for. We're going to be adding text later, but you'll see what these other channels are used for. But what you want to do is select your part in the timeline, so video 1, and then overwrite right here, and that will basically drop it in here. So you could use either method. You could use the mark in and out points overwrite, or you can use the drag drop and use the razor tool. Let's go back to our videos. Say you want to add, and I can just show you how quickly this can go. By the way, if you want to move between clips right here, like say you don't want to like move your little playhead, like position it exactly to the end, you can use the up and down arrow keys to move back and forth from clip to clip. Now, like I said, if you have a lot of video footage, a lot of clips and a lot of pictures, I would say the marking in and out point and clicking overwrite is the best way to do it. But like I said, for YouTube videos, you're really only gonna have like, well, for me, I only really have like 1 or 2 video footage files. So for me, it's easier always to drag and drop. But let's say you want to add this video, right? We're going to go ahead and go to our timeline, press the down arrow to go to the end of this one right here. Say you want to add this piece of footage right here, right? We're going to double click it. We want to start it at here. Set an in point with I, and set an out point here. Then click overwrite. If you want to use all the shortcuts, you can literally just press semicolon. Is it semicolon? What is it? I think it's period. Yeah, it's period. And then if you see it's a little too long again, well, use your razor tool. Say we only want to, have this portion right here. And we can make small edits like that and drag it over. But you'll see why this method is so good at the in and out point, because you can go back to your video folder, go to another one, and say we want to start from here and we want to end there. Press period. Good. Next one. Say we want this piece of footage. Start here. Go to out point here, press period, overwrites. So you see, it's consistently much quicker and easier to do it this way if you have lots of video files. So mark your in point, mark your out point, press period to overwrite it into the timeline, and you basically have it there. So, like I said, it's up to you what method you want to use, but I prefer to use my method just because I don't have a lot of files, basically. Let's go ahead and just let's go ahead and add this one, maybe, and press period to overwrite. You can use any of these pieces of footage in your own timeline if you're doing it with me right now. Period. Some of this may not even like look logical, but I'm just here to show you like the mechanics behind it. So let's go and add some pictures. Maybe let's add this picture. Now pictures I would just drag and drop, because I mean, to me it doesn't really make a difference. Now what you can do is you can put pictures in between video files. In fact, let's just do that, I guess. And you can move several pieces or several files by just highlighting. And you don't need to worry about like if you're gonna overwrite anything, because the cool thing about Premiere Pro is that it clips it right to the end of the last file. And you see that picture files are gonna be pink and video files are gonna be red. So let's just go ahead and add a picture in between there. And maybe let's add a picture in between here. This one perhaps. Oops. We're going to go over that tool very soon. The one that I just accidentally used. So, let's say we just, anything else I want to add in maybe? Maybe this picture right here. Any videos I want to add in? I think that's okay. I mean, like I said, you can put it whatever you want, really. So now we have our videos and our pictures in. You basically now know how to set in points, out points. The next thing you want to do is let's go over some of these tools over here. Now your selection tool is obviously just where you select and move stuff around, and you can highlight stuff. That's easy. A good one to use is the rolling edit tool. Now the rolling edit tool is going to do is you have this video file here and you have this video file here, right? What the rolling edit tool will do, it will basically change the in points and out points of the two pieces of footages that you're in between. And you'll see the differences in this window right here. You'll see the differences. It basically just changes, like I said, the in point of one footage and the out point of one. For example, if you want the bird to move its head, at an earlier spot, you would just use the rolling edit tool. Like I said, honestly, I don't really use this that often, but if you like to use it, the option is there for you. It just changes the in points and out points of two different files that you're editing in between. This is good for like if you've messed your in point and out point up, or you changed your mind on the in point and out point. Then a good way to do it is to use this tool, because if you do it the other way, like if you say, okay, well, I want this clip to be longer, then you have to go to the edge of the clip here and use this tool to make it longer and shorter. But the problem is that you don't have enough room on this side, because this video is already like taking up like 6 seconds. So how are you gonna make this clip longer? You have to like move everything. So an easy way to do it is, well, just grab your rolling edit tool here, and you can just make the first clip shorter and the second clip longer, and you don't have to worry about moving everything around. So the rolling edit tool is great for doing stuff like that. If you want to make one clip longer and another one shorter, that's a great way to do that. Another great tool is the razor tool, obviously, to just cut stuff out like that. So razor tool is good for cutting stuff out. The slip tool is great too. What this will do, this will basically just work with one piece of footage. It'll change the in point and the out point of one piece of footage instead of two pieces of footage. So this is just basically editing the in point and out point for one of your video files. So like I said before, if you wanted to change the in point and out point of your video file, you have to go back in it, right? Like you have to go back in it and change this. But when you change these in points and out points, your video file is going to be shorter or longer. So it may be like this then. Well, then you got to move everything to the left side, or if it's longer, then you got to move everything to the right side. So instead of having to move stuff around, you can just use your slip tool here, and you can just change the in points and out points of this piece of footage. And I think this piece of footage is a bad idea to show it on, because there's not much happening. Let's use it in this one right here. So as you can see, if I were to move this more to the left or more to the right, we get to see what ends up being in the video. The starting point will be right here. So you see this bird flies in. The bird flies out. I mean, it doesn't fly in. Flies out. But if we were to move this more to the right, we'll actually see the bird land and then fly away. So just know the slip tool is great for editing in points and out points of one specific clip, and the rolling edit tool is great for editing in points and out points for two clips that are next to each other. Those are the really only tools that I use. The pen tool is great for editing audio, which is what we're going to be doing next. So hopefully you understand so far how to import your stuff, how to organize them in bins, how to import your videos and photos, and how to set in points and out points, and how to use some of these edit tools. The next thing we're going to be doing is importing audio. Now, we have audio channels the same way we have video channels here. If you don't want to use this audio, for example, like this ocean here, what you have to do is you have to hold down the Alt key and then click a piece of audio, and then you can delete it. But you have to hold down the Alt key. And this leaves it open to take out the sound from your footage, and you can just add in regular music. So we go into our audio folder here, and we're just going to dock it again. Actually, we only have 2 files here, so we don't really need to dock it. We're just going to have it open here. Let's go ahead and put our music in first, I guess. Same thing here. You can basically set your in points and out points. Say you want to have our in point here, in point, and then our out point here, out point. And then the same way that you did it before, you can drag and drop, but like I said, you can use the overwrite here, and it will overwrite into audio. We're also going to get our narration, our ego narration, and here we just want everything, so I'm just going to go ahead and drag it at the bottom here. And then we can close this. So simple as dragging and dropping and just setting your boundaries of in and out. And if we listen to this,
the bald eagle is the only eagle unique to North America.
So right now we see that the music is a little too loud, so what we want to do is we want to go to this side of the right side here and move this, basically make it bigger, make the tracks bigger, which is you can do that by grabbing onto this little square and moving it up and down. And if you want, you can make the timeline bigger as well. So here's where the pen tool comes into play, which is this tool right here, the pen tool. Is this our music right here?
To North America.
No, that's our audio track. That's our narration. This is our music track. So what you want to do is, like I said, music starts a little late, so we're just going to go ahead and grab our razor tool and delete that. For audio editing, you're really only going to use razor tool. I mean, everything else, and the pen tool. That's really the only thing you're going to be using. So what you want to do is,
the bald eagle.
We actually want this narration to start a little late, maybe like a second late, and we want our music to start loud and then go lower. So what you're gonna do is use your pen tool here, and you're gonna mark a spot where you want it to start going low, which is gonna be right here, right when the narration starts. So we're gonna mark this spot with our pen tool, and you see it makes a little yellow bubble. You can then grab your selection tool and move this yellow bubble down. Well, after you create it, you have to make 2 yellow bubbles. You have to make that. You basically have to make yellow bubbles around the area you want it to be high, and then you can use your selection tool to drag it down like so. So this means that we're going to start at this level. You put a bubble at where you want to start, and then you put a bubble at where you want to end. So we're going to be starting at 100% volume, and we're slowly going to be going down to, and you can adjust this by grabbing the line to maybe -15.
The bald eagle is the only eagle unique.
Yeah, that sounds fine. So now we listen to it.
The bald eagle is the only eagle.
We see that it slowly goes down in volume. So that's a great technique to use to fade in and fade out music using the pen tool. Aside from that, I mean, you could do the same technique at the end, and we don't have enough footage here, it looks like, to take up this video. So let's go ahead and drag this down let's just add some more. Let's add some more pictures, I guess.
8 feet, the eagle is an impressive sight to witness.
So we'll end it right there. Grab our razor tool. You see the razor tool is great for editing audio. And I kind of want this picture to be the last one. Now there's a note about the pictures that you'll notice, and I'll be going over that right after we fill this timeline up. Let's go and grab this piece of footage. We just want to fill it up right now. I've already showed you guys like the mechanics behind everything, so hopefully you understand it. Let's go ahead and grab a now you see we've come into a situation now, and this is actually a great thing. I've run into this, so I can show you guys. Say you're creating a video, and say you have like this small spot here where it's like, okay, well, I need to put something in here, right? What you can do is not only can you set in points and out points for your footage, but you can also set in points and out points for your timeline. So say you want to set an endpoint right here, right? What you can do is same thing, and then we can move through the timeline, go to the end here, press O, and this will basically select a piece on your timeline where you want to basically overwrite your footage into. So what you can then do is say we want to place a video. This one's 11 seconds long, as you see, but this space here is only like what, 5 seconds long? 5-6 seconds long, maybe 7 seconds long. So if you double click this and then click overwrite, you'll see that it basically fits it into that small little spot that you've basically set it up for. You basically set your timeline up for that small little spot, and when you click overwrite, it basically fits it in. Now, if we didn't do that, for example, if we didn't do it like we just did, what will happen is that if we click overwrite, say we go here and we click overwrite, it'll basically, what it'll do, it'll overwrite your picture. We don't want it to overwrite. So that's why it's important if you come into situations like these, you do want to set in your in point and out points just for the timeline, because it'll really help in not overwriting stuff. Like you won't be like going over any pictures. So as you see, editing becomes really easy in Premiere Pro once you like get the hang of it and understand the tools. I think marking in points and out points is really a crucial part in editing. It makes it a lot easier. But like I said, if you only have like, one piece of footage or 2 pieces of footage, then it's not really too difficult. You can just drag and drop. So hopefully you've understood everything so far. I know I've kind of been a little over the place, but this is kind of like I don't really do this type of editing a lot, so it's kind of different for me. I usually do editing that only has like 1 or 2 pieces of footage, but hopefully you understand marking in points and out points, overwriting, using some of these tools, and just dropping some stuff in here. So the next thing we want to do is let's go ahead and add a title. So say you want to add a title. We haven't gone over that yet. So to add a title or to add some text anywhere, you want to go up to Title, New Title, and Default Still. You can keep everything the same. It'll basically keep the resolution that your video's in, so you can just keep it the same. Now, here you have a bunch of fonts at the bottom. You can change your colors here, add a stroke, a lot of cool features here that in Photoshop or GIMP would take several steps to create, but here it's very easy to do. So we're just going to go ahead and grab our type tool, and we're going to type in YouTube tutorial bald eagle tribute. Why not, right? And what you can then do from here is you can change your fonts up here if you'd like. You can also change fonts here. Did I just say fonts? Getting some kind of accent now? Okay, so you can change your fonts either from here or from here. You can change your size from here or from here. You can just go over some of these. If you change some of these, it'll basically show you the changes. So you can type in a value or you can just drag. Adobe basically has this mechanic where if you hover your mouse over a percent, you can just drag it left and right. It's pretty cool. So I would just play around with some of these options and see what you can do. Font size, though, we're going to put our font size like that. And we're just going to put it sort of into center here. And we're going to add a black stroke. So strokes is down here at the bottom. We're going to create an outer stroke. And what color do we want? You can select a color with your little, what is this called, like color picker tool. We're going to use this watery color here, the color from the water. And we want the stroke to be not that thick, maybe like right there, that's fine. Maybe like a 25, yeah. And you can also add a drop shadow here if you wanted to. We'll add a drop shadow, why not? And then from here on, if you're done, you can just click the X button, and what it'll do, it'll basically. So I actually had trouble finding this because, like I said, I usually don't make any folders or bins when I'm editing. But it'll place it in your videos, folder. If you made a videos folder, if you didn't make any folders though, it'll usually just place it like right here. Let me show you guys. It'll usually just place it here. Like if you don't make any folders and you're just like dragging all of your stuff in, like regularly. Like for example, usually what I would like when I'm editing, I would usually just have my. Literally my video editing would literally look like this. I would have my two pieces here. I would have like one picture that's like my thumbnail, and literally I'd be working with like 4 files only. So you're only working with a few files. Usually your title or your text will appear here. But if you created folders, it'll appear here. I just moved it right now though. So, but if you can't find it, just look through some of your folders. It'll be there. So once you have your title, it'll basically be here. And what you can then do is here's where video 2 and video 3 channels come into play. You can just drag it on. You can drag it on like that. And if you want to ever like watch your video in full screen, what you can do is just hit the go over here and hit tilde, and you can watch it in full screen. However, you want to like really go in full screen, you gotta hit Control and then tilde, and then you can watch it in full screen like that.
The bald eagle is the only eagle unique to North America.
So, as usual, if you ever want something to be longer or shorter, like we did, like if you ever want it to be pictures longer or shorter, you can like do this and do that to make it shorter. Same with text here. If you want it to be longer or shorter, you can also do that like so.
The bald eagle is the only eagle unique to North America.
So you could do that. What else can we go over? Let's go over some effects. Effects is probably, I think, maybe the last thing that we're going to go over. Now, there are a lot of effects. Like I said, most of these effects I don't personally use, so you may want to go through them yourself, but there are some great effects that you can use. One of the most popular effects, and say we wanted to add a fade in and a fade out to this text, right? What that's called is it's called a dissolve. Added to dissolve. Now, if you drag this effect, you can click it and then drag it onto the timeline like so. And if you play it,
the bald eagle is the only eagle.
You'll see our text fades away. Now, I'm going to zoom in. The same way you can adjust how long you want pictures to be and titles to be, you can also adjust how long you want your effect to be. If you want your fade to be slower, you can make it longer.
The bald eagle is the only.
If you want it to be shorter, you can make it shorter.
The only eagle.
So, great tool for that. Now, some other stuff you can do is you can also add edits to your videos. So what kind of edits am I talking about? say we want to add an effect. Let's look for a good piece of footage. Now, as you can see, when you're scrubbing through your videos, you may see something like this. You're like, "Wait, what the hell happened here? Like, why is this picture looking so zoomed in?" What you can do is right-click and scale to frame size. Now, the reason why it does that is because the picture is larger than your video's resolution. So if you right-click, scale to frame size, you'll see that it fixes itself. Now, some pictures will have this, some pictures won't have it, and I just realized I have a duplicate here, but I think that's just because we're trying to fill up the timeline. And you see here, it doesn't look like anything's wrong with this, but if you right-click, scale to frame size, you'll see that it looks like that. But if you don't want that, you can keep it like that too. So sometimes you won't even notice it, other times you will notice it. And then here at the end, you can also scale to frame size. So you have that. But if you want to add an effect to a piece of footage, let's look for a piece of footage that we can add an effect on. And the same with footage, you can right-click scale to frame size as well. But because all these footage in the same, because all this footage is in the same resolution, and because we've basically dragged our footage, remember how we dragged our footage as a new item? It basically created the resolution of the sequence that our video's in. If you were to do that little trick in the beginning like I showed you, like remember how I showed you in the beginning black video in 1920 by 1080? How I showed you with the black video in 1920 by 1080? If your footage is not 1920 by 1080, you'll have black borders around it. But to fix that, like I said, you can also click scale to frame size. So scale to frame size is great if you have like black borders around stuff. It'll basically fix that for you. So let's see. Let's add a piece of video footage to this, I guess. A video effect, not a piece of video footage. Let's add a video effect to this. And a great effect that I like to use is shadow highlight. And basically all you have to do is just drag this effect onto the picture. And now if you go to your effects panel up here, here's basically all of your effect options. And each one of these effects has different options here. So, I can't really give you a guide on how to use this. It's honestly just a matter of playing around with the sliders and seeing what looks good and what looks bad. But basically what we're going to be adding is a temporal smoothing of 1. And what this basically does is it just makes sure that when the video goes through, that the edits don't look like really abrupt. It basically smoothly creates the effect. And we're going to go down to more options, and we're going to go ahead and do a white and black clipping of 1%. And if you click this button right here, shadow highlight, which is basically the effect that we're working with right now, you see these little down arrows. This is basically all different things you can do. But the difference between here and the difference between this, that's the difference. Our shadows are basically a little lighter. Cortana, I don't want you here. Stop it. No, I didn't say search something. Come on. Okay. So yeah, you can basically toggle effect on and off to see the differences by clicking this little button here. What else do we have? Another good effect, another great effect I think would be, let's see, it's the auto levels. But I'm looking for a piece of footage that'd be good to use it on. Maybe this one right here. So if you go to auto levels, now I know a lot of these effects because I've used them several times, but as you go through these effects, you'll know what to use them for eventually. Auto levels, go and drag it onto here. Now you see a difference already. If I press Control Z to undo and Control Shift Z to redo, you'll see what the difference is already. We see that the colors stand out a little more. So again, we're gonna give a temporal smoothing of 1 second. This is always a good thing to put. It's always good to put a temporal smoothing of 1 second. And we're gonna go ahead and give a black and white clipping of 5%. As you see, the colors stand out a bit more, so that's a great way to make this look a lot better. If we compare it to before, this is how it looked before, and this is how it looks now. It looks a little better. You can also add effects to pictures. So for example, at the end here, we can add like a zoom in if you want to do something like that, or a zoom out. If we listen to this.
Impressive sight to witness.
Let's actually see what she's saying here. What is she saying?
Beat the with a wingspan between 5.5 and 8 feet, the eagle is an impressive sight to witness.
So he's talking about the wing size, the wingspan. So I think it'd be a good idea to like show this picture when she's talking about the wingspan, and we'll just zoom out so we can clearly see. It sort of gives it a better feel of how giant the wingspan of the eagle is. So here's a great tool to use the rolling edit, because we don't want to make this shorter and then make this longer. We have to move everything around. So rolling edit tool here, we can easily do that.
With a wingspan between 5.5
All right, a little more earlier.
miles per hour. With a wingspan between.
All right. So to add effects to pictures, it's really pretty much the same thing. So you can add, like you see, we have video transitions and video effects and audio transitions. But for effects, you really only, like for me, I've only ever used really effects. Go ahead and get a selection tool. I've really only ever used effects by clicking the picture and then going to the effects controls, and I really only play with opacity and motion. So for motion, if you want to create a zoom in, zoom out sort of thing, let's go ahead and do some animation. So animation is something you can do in Premiere Pro. It's kind of complicated, so I'm not gonna dive into it. But basically, what it is, you're working with keyframes, and animation is really important in After Effects, and I have an After Effects tutorial on animation. But in Premiere Pro, animation works kind of the same. So let's go ahead and zoom in a bit so I can explain a little better. What you want to look at is this right here. Now this is your clip. And let me actually mute this because I don't want to hear the lady constantly. Now, here you can basically go through, it's only a picture though, so it's not going to really make a difference. If you were doing it for a video though, you could do the same thing. You can create a zoom in and zoom out for pictures as well. Now when you go through this, you'll basically see how things change. This is basically a preview of only this slide or this clip on your timeline. But we're working with the picture. So what we want to do is basically a keyframe is the starting point and an ending point of an animation. So what we want to do is use a scale. Scale will basically make the picture bigger and smaller. So if we go ahead and move this left and right, we'll see that this is what it does. This is what this effect does. It basically scales the picture bigger or smaller. We want our animation to start at 0, or well, in this case, we want it to start like right here. Our animation should be right here. And we want it to start at, let's go ahead and we want it to start right here. So what you're going to do is click this little time stopwatch, this little animation. When you click it, it'll basically create a keyframe. Now what this keyframe will do, it'll basically say, okay, at this point in time, we are going to be having the scale at this number. Now if you move your keyframe to another spot, say to the very end here, or to like right here, if you change this value, say to here, what will happen is you'll see these little triangles here, these little diamonds. This is a keyframe basically. And what's happening is that it's Premiere Pro is saying, okay, from this point on, from this keyframe here, we're going to be scaling it at this number. Then eventually, as we go to this keyframe here, at this point in time, we're eventually going to be scaling this down to this number. That's basically how keyframes work, and it gets a little more complicated than that with other effects, but generally speaking, this is the basic idea behind it. And now when we play this,
miles per hour.
Oops, unmute again.
With a wingspan between 5.5 and 8 feet, the Eagle is an impressive sight to witness.
So as you see, we basically have a nice little cool effect where she's talking about the wingspan at the end, and then we have this cool picture of like the eagle coming out and showing how, how long its wings are, whatever. So from here on, you can do the same little trick I showed you earlier in the video, where you can grab your pen tool and you can a start point and an end point, and just drag your music out so that it looks like it's fading out. It sounds like it's fading out. So that's pretty much it. I'm trying to think of anything else that's pretty basic. But honestly, that's kind of it. I mean, we've gone over text, we've gone over, you know, audio, music, videos, pictures, stuff like that. Now, to export, obviously you constantly want to go save, file save, always when you can, just because Adobe has a autosave feature. The other day I was working on a League of Legends video and my computer crashed and I basically lost like 10 minutes worth of editing, but luckily autosave basically saved me. But sometimes autosave is not always going to work, so just make sure you save your work, always. Now you want to export this for YouTube, and here's where I kind of love Premiere Pro for a lot of reasons why. If you go to export, file, export, and you have to be in your timeline window for it to like work. If you're in any other window, it's not going to work. So file, export, media. You can just click OK here. Now you have a ton of different formats. Now for YouTube, you want to go H.264. So this is basically an MP4, and it's probably the best one. Now what's cool about this is that they have a ton of presets. You can create your own presets by adjusting some of these values and, fooling around with all these settings here and stuff like that. But honestly, we don't really know what you're doing, and some of these things can be a little complicated. I would honestly just stick with the presets. They have a ton of presets. If you're looking for an Android preset, they have it. If you're looking for an iPhone preset, they have it. Apple TV preset, they have it. Vimeo preset, they have it. YouTube preset, they have it. So they pretty much have a lot of presets. What you want to do is go to YouTube down here, YouTube HD 1080p, and this will basically save your video as a 1080p HD 29.97 frames per second video. And make sure that you have entire sequence selected here, because if you only if you have something selected, then it's only gonna, if you have sequence in and out, then it's only gonna have that selected portion of your sequence. But make sure you click entire sequence here, and you can basically preview it here as well. But yeah, but this is basically your in and out. Now in this case, you do want to use in and out, because if you don't use in and out, you're going to have a lot of this black footage at the end, which we don't really want. So there we go. So we're going to use custom, because custom we basically created our own little area. But most of the time, if everything goes correct, you click entire sequence, because you won't have this black at the end. I probably just screwed something up. Like I said, this style of editing is very different from my style of editing for YouTube, because it's it's not I don't do a lot of these things. I don't usually use in and out stuff. This video tutorial basically encompasses a lot more than I do in my standard editing. But usually you want to go entire sequence. If you have some black stuff at the end, then you just adjust this, and you'll be fine. So when you have that H.264 YouTube 1080p, you can go ahead and name it over here. So we're just gonna name this YouTube tutorial, right? Click save, and then you can click export. Now depending on how long your video is, it'll take anywhere between 5 minutes to an hour to render, and depending on how high quality your footage is, it'll take some time to render as well. But right after here, it's going to take us like 7 minutes. It also depends on how fast your computer is and how powerful it is. But from here on, I mean, everything else is pretty standard. When this finishes rendering, you can go to your desktop, view it, and you can upload to YouTube or do whatever you want. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully it was helpful. I apologize if I was kind of like all over the place. I mean, hopefully it was helpful. If you have any questions, if you got confused at any point in the video, if you have any questions or feedback, you can definitely leave it in the comments. If you have any specific questions on how to use a certain tool, or if you didn't really understand something within the video, then or if you're running into a problem, you can definitely leave a comment and I will definitely answer as soon as I can. If it's a general topic that's pretty big, I can even make a video for you about the topic. So don't be afraid to leave a comment because, I definitely will give you some help if you need it. That's pretty much it. I mean, I don't really have anything else to go over. If this program sort of scares you or it's a bit too much, you can always continue to use Windows Movie Maker. I do have a guide on the Windows Movie Maker. Like I said, Premiere Pro kind of gives you a lot. It offers a lot, and it gives you a lot of customization. But if you're not going to use any of that customization, then it's a lot better to just use Windows Movie Maker, because if you're only looking for like basic editing, Windows Movie Maker basically offers the exact same stuff. Premiere Pro just gives it, a lot more customization. So if you're into the customization, I recommend Premiere Pro. But if you're looking to do more basic stuff, then Windows Movie Maker will save you a lot of time. It will save you a lot of learning, and it will definitely save you a lot of these details you won't have to go through. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video helped you out in any way. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It'll really help me out. If you didn't like it, you can leave a comment as well, giving some feedback. If you have any other comments or questions, please leave them in the comments as well, and I'll do my best to answer them. I usually respond to comments within 24 to 48 hours, depending on your question and depending on how busy I am. I have plenty of other content on my channel about different software tutorials and how-to videos, so if you're interested in that type of stuff, check it out. And if you like what you're seeing, you can subscribe too. Really appreciate it. You can also check out my other channels and social media as shown on the screen right now. And with that, thank you so much, everyone. And this is GSmaniamsmart, and I'll be back sooner than you think. Don't go anywhere.